The most interesting and newsworthy television show of the year is coming here to TCN. We are not bragging, that's actually true.
The president's been shot. I repeat, the president's been shot.
So our longtime producer Justin Wells and a team have been embedded, with no publicity at all, with Donald Trump on the campaign trail for months. They're the only crew capturing what is going on the campaign in real time, intimately. They're with Trump as he campaigns for the presidency across the country, and they've shot some amazing footage. It shows you what it's really like in there. So if you're a member, you will soon be able to get this docu-series covering the historic campaign, the fall of Joe Biden, never-before-seen footage from the assassination attempt at the Butler Township, Pennsylvania Trump rally, and a lot more. It's going to pull back the curtain completely. They are embedded inside the campaign. I can't wait to see it personally. But to get it first, go to tuckercarlson.com, become a member. The greatest television event of the year, and we're proud to offer it. I'm so spun up, I fear what'll happen if I keep going. So I want to pause now and introduce my friend Glenn Beck, and I want to just actually introduce him because I've known Glenn Beck for a long time, and we worked at at least two. I've been fired a lot, but I know that we worked at least two cable news channels over the years. And I was saying to one of my producers this morning, who worked in cable news for a long time and who wouldn't understand, I said, I was in at least two executive meetings at CNN and Fox News, physically present, and listened to executives express concern and fear about Glenn Beck. And it was the most interesting. Glenn Beck is like the single nicest person. Well, you all know him, apparently. He's like the single nicest, most decent person ever, like ever. And he was also at the highest ratings. He always had the highest ratings. He was the most popular at both those channels when I worked there. And so what were they concerned about? Why would that bother you? The guy is like killing it. He's the biggest guy here, and he's the nicest person in the building. He's always like buying iPhones for his staff. You know, he's just really nice. What they feared about Glenn Beck was he was the only truly creative person in the building. Glenn Beck is a creative man. Now you would think that's gotta be pretty common in a business like television. Aren't they all creative? Oh no, just the opposite. Because creativity requires, above all, thinking for yourself, following your own muse, feeling your own instincts and believing them. Seeing something and deciding, I'm gonna make that real, bringing something from within you and putting it into physical form. That's what creativity is. And of course, it's dying in this country because it's such a threat to the lies. A creative person can't help himself. He might just tell the truth. You don't know what he's gonna do. He's not gonna read from the script. And if you're uncomfortable with people telling the truth, a creative person is absolutely terrifying. I mean, this is why they hate Trump, by the way. And Glenn Beck, I think, is the most creative person I've ever met in my life. He is a Mount Vesuvius of creativity. It's like you can't contain it. Glenn Beck, after writing books and making movies and hosting shows, now he's decided, well, I'm gonna become a painter. I have all these paintings inside me, and he's good at it. He's just a remarkable human being, a great explainer, and a really decent man. No wonder he has so many friends in Utah. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, Glenn Beck.
All righty then. I kind of like you guys too.
That was, I hope you took that with the love that it was meant. that it was meant. You are a creative force. I've never seen anyone like it.
Thank you.
And a really, whatever that membrane is that's in most of us that prevents us from believing the truth, believing our own instincts, and then articulating them, you are lacking that. And you just channel what
you know what it
think is true.
It's alcoholism. No, it is. It is. It's alcoholism. Because I spent 35 years of my life drinking my life away.
Yes.
Because I really thought all of the things that, society tells you. That you're different somehow, you're bad somehow,
yes.
You're not. And every single one of us have something that we've done in our life that we think, oh, if they only knew, then they'd all hate me. And alcoholism, I don't recommend it. But, not writing a prescription or anything, but honestly, when you are broken down and you have nothing left,
right,
you become the most powerful person in the world, because everybody is afraid because you're not.
Yes.
When I was
that is it right there. Can I just restate what he just said? Everyone is afraid because you're not afraid.
Yeah. I was sitting, I don't know if I think I might have told this story. This might get me in trouble. But I remember sitting in Roger Ailes' office, and he had called me in. And I knew, you know this game. We're the only two survivors of Fox News. Congratulations on that.
Congratulations to you. You led the way.
Yeah.
Fired before anybody.
So great to see somebody just making them sweat. But I said, you know that the way that place used to be, they investigated, and everybody I ever worked with at Fox always said, oh, I owe Roger Ailes. When I was sitting in my interview, there was a woman, she was in PR, that sat across the table from me and not once looked me in the eye. It was my, welcome to the company thing, okay? And was sitting next to me was my business partner. She never looked me in the eye, ever. And she kept saying, this is it. And she would look at him, but not look at me. She'd look all around me, but not at my eyes.
She never looked at me in the eye either.
Right? So, and you'd be talking to her and her eyes would be moving. And you'd be like, I gotta follow her eyes. I gotta catch her one of these times, right? And she said, the last thing she said to me was, a lot of people make mistakes. And I thought, oh, here we go. A lot of people make mistakes. And then she reached down to her purse. She took out her card and she said, if something happens, don't call anyone. Call me first. And that's the only time she looked at me, and she slid her card across the table and she said, you'd be amazed at what we can make go away. I was like, I'm in a mob movie.
Did she flick her tongue out and catch a fly?
He was, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, no, I've seen her do it. So
yeah. Truly frightening.
That's really dark.
And so when I got on, and they were all so afraid because, there was nothing worse. We would spend all day writing a script, and 3 minutes before we'd go on, I'd say, turn off the prompters, I'm not doing that. And they'd all go, what? What are you gonna do? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm not doing that. And we had really honestly worked all day, but the only reason why most times we did it is because they wanted to view every single word beforehand, okay? And so I turned it off and made them afraid. They were going through my garbage and investigating me. And I have no proof that it was them. I know the firm that had investigated me before.
I'm sure it was Putin. It's usually Putin. Yep.
And my wife and I, because I'm an alcoholic, and I've said all the worst stuff. You think you were bad. You're a rookie. And I said it all to the audience, so I wasn't afraid. Go ahead, go through my garbage. We would laugh about it. Roger Ailes called me one day and he said, You know, a lot of people don't like the power that you're accumulating. And I said, I'm not accumulating power, I'm just talking. A lot of people would like to take you down. And I said, oh, I know. And he said, he pulls out a stack of binders. And he had them down on and he picks them up and he puts them on his desk. And he pets them almost like it was a cat. He was all of a sudden a James Bond villain. I'm like, he's got a white cat. He's gonna throw me into a tank of sharks soon. And he said, a lot of people are investigating you. And I said, oh, I know. Then he said, you know, I've met your wife. Now, and I pulled my chair up right at the edge of his desk and I said, yes. It's always a shame when someone hurts a woman like that, meaning somehow or another he had information that I was cheating on my wife. And I said, I looked him dead in the eye and I said, I know. And that's why that's never happened. And then like third graders, we had a stare down. I was like, I'm not looking away because I know the person that looks away is the liar. I could do this all day. That scared them.
So what you're saying, I think, is the media is a pretty wholesome business.
Kids, get into it. You'll love it.
I always encourage my daughters to go into television. It's so sick. So when did you decide? Oh, I
wanted to be like Russell Brand.
I love that.
Thank you. That was a little weird, but I love it.
You know, I thought this of Russell too, but growing up in Southern California in the 70s, I always distrusted people who sat Indian style barefoot.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Now I like
crisscross applesauce.
Crisscross applesauce.
Oh my gosh.
And they'd lecture you about baby harp seals and stuff. And now I've decided I'm kind of for the baby harp seals, and I like that. So good for you.
Good. Can I tell you something real quick?
Of course.
And then I'll let you do.
You go.
Okay.
You're Glenn Beck. Go crazy.
So last night, I'm reading my scriptures because I'm doing a show on what's happening in Europe. Let's hear it for the scriptures. God bless America.
Amen.
I love you so much. So I'm reading my scriptures because I'm doing a show in a couple of weeks on what's happening in Europe, and it is evil, and it's coming here.
Yes.
And so for the last few nights, I've been just looking at all this stuff and reading all this stuff, and man, I just felt just awful. So I went to the scriptures, and I'm going to read scriptures. And as soon as I started reading, you came to mind. And he is pissed. No, I'm kidding.
No, sorry.
He wanted me to tell you.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me.
No, but we had a conversation beforehand, and that was from a prompting that I got last night.
Wow.
And I just wanted you to know that. And immediately following that, I had an overwhelming feeling, and I've had it all day. Something good is sparked here tonight.
I think that.
Okay? So could I ask you one thing?
Of course.
I mean, this is like my hometown. I know them.
Oh, I know you do. I've watched you hug more people in the last 5 hours.
Could we invite the Spirit and just say a quick prayer?
Of course.
You haven't crossed your legs.
Sorry, I can't. I have a back injury, but
wow.
In spirit.
Heavenly Father, we love you so much. We thank you for this night. We thank you for Tucker. We thank you for all of the things that he has already exposed and done. We ask for your blessings on him and on our conversation tonight, that something happens tonight, whether it's on stage or off stage, it's with all of us or just one of us. We ask that your will be done, as we are your servants, and we are grateful to serve at this time. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Okay.
So, thank you for that. Bless you for that. And so does that mean that you are hopeful? I mean, I do want to ask you what's happening in Europe, because I too have the sense that it's important here. But let me just skip to the end of the story. Are you hopeful? And if so, why?
So,
Ooh, that's not the answer I was looking for, Glenn.
Oh, I'm hopeful. It's going to be great. This is the weirdest thing that happened in my life. I sat with some biblical scholars, some real scholars, and we were talking about, they were teaching me about the end times. And the whole time I'm like, this sounds familiar. I think I'm seeing some of this now. And we got to the end, and we were all crying, because it could be, everybody always says this, you know, the apostles said this and they were wrong. So likely very wrong on this. But it feels like the end times. Enough of the signs are here that it could happen quickly. And we stood there with each other, and we were all kind of blubbering. And after that, somebody said, so what do we do? And I said, I have no idea, but I strangely feel so good because I know the ending. What an odd, think of this. For thousands of years, people have waited. The apostles said it was coming in their lifetime, the second coming of Christ. It is going to be a nightmare. Read the book. A nightmare. And you can feel it coming. What he was saying about evil, you can feel it. But I have to tell you, I live in a small 450 people town in Idaho. Oh, you're all here. We go places together all the time.
The whole county, it looks like.
Yeah. But every Sunday, I've been up there all summer, and every Sunday I go to church, somebody gets up on the stand and says, look, we all know what time it is, and we know people are going to be hurting, so we've got to get our stuff together. We have to prepare to help others. It's the greatest area I've ever lived. And they're all just farmers, they're just regular people, and they don't have any BS in their life. They're working with their hands in the soil, which connects you to everything. You don't have to talk about transgenderism because it's not happening in the animal kingdom. You know, I don't see the bull out there going, I'm gonna put some lipstick on. Okay? And so it's just rooted in truth and service to one another. When you are a farmer, you know the best farmer in the world could be living next to you, and he could have a bad crop. He could have a bad year. He goes down. You want to be there for him, not only because he's your neighbor, but because you know that's going to happen to you at some point. You can be the best farmer, and then it's up to God. And, you know, sometimes it doesn't rain. And so everybody helps each other. Everybody, when we moved off the farms and we started living in big cities, it was over. I bought my ranch up in Idaho for one reason. I was in New York City working at Fox, and I realized I can only, walking in the streets of New York at night, I can only see things made by man. I look up at the sky, there's no stars. I can't see the moon. There's nothing. When you go out and you're in black and you can see the Milky Way, the colors of the Milky Way. You live in a place where you have to recognize this, and you're seeing the colors of the Milky Way. You're seeing all the stars. You immediately say, because everybody does it, we are so small. What is the point of
I
this?
almost get the feeling I'm not the center of the universe.
Almost.
And then I push
And
that
then
out of my
I remember
mind.
that. Then you remember
that's insane.
Right.
Okay, stop.
I mean, I've got a billboard in Times Square.
We've told you before about Hallow. It is a great app that I am proud to say I use, my whole family uses. It's for daily prayer and Christian meditation, and it's transformative. As we head into the start of school in the height of election season, you need it. Trust me, we all do. Things are going to get crazier and crazier and crazier. Sometimes it's hard to imagine even what is coming next. So with everything happening in the world right now, it is essential to ground yourself. This is not some quack cure. This is the oldest and most reliable cure in history. It's prayer. Ground yourself in prayer and scripture every single day. That is a prerequisite for staying sane and healthy, and maybe for doing better eternally. So if you're busy on the road, headed to kids' sports, there is always time to pray and reflect alone or as a family, but it's hard to be organized about it. Building a foundation of prayer is going to be absolutely critical as we head into November, praying that God's will is done in this country and that peace and healing come to us here in the United States and around the world. Christianity obviously is under attack everywhere. That's not an accident. Why is Christianity, the most peaceful of all religions, under attack globally? Did you see the opening of the Paris Olympics? There's a reason, because the battle is not temporal, it's taking place in the unseen world. It's a spiritual battle, obviously. So try Hallow. Get 3 months completely free at Hallow. That's hallow.com/Tucker. If there's ever a time to get spiritually in tune and ground yourself in prayer, it's now. Hallow will help. Personally and strongly and totally sincerely recommended. Hallow.com/Tucker.
Oh, I know
And
what
so
you
you-
mean. I
yeah.
know what you mean. So, because it says that we're not going to know when the end comes, but I wonder, why would we be afraid of that?
Well, that's the point of the book of Revelation. That's the point of prophecy. So you won't be afraid.
Right, that's right.
He's telling you, you're not going to know the hour, but at the same time, let's not dismiss that he says, but look for these things, because these things will happen and you will know the hour is nearing.
So let's go through them. What are you noticing that makes you think this has been foretold?
The breakdown of society, the absolute fact. James Lindsay, you know James. I don't know if he still is, but he was a diehard atheist when we first met each other. Diehard, okay? He was on my show about 2 years ago, and I said, James, I'm interested to hear from you as an atheist. How would you describe what is happening to people and the message of you're nobody, you'll never make it, you can't succeed without me, everything is bad, everything your great-great-great-great-grandfather might have done or just observed and had no role in it makes you unforgivable. How would you define that? And he said, evil. And I said, now, hang on, do you mean evil the way I mean evil? And he said, oh yes, I think it's almost an entity, and you can feel it. It's palpable. If you don't do this, but if you go on X and you're looking for things like what I'm looking for in Europe, you will see things that you'll say to yourself, what the hell? I've never seen this before. A total, the destruction of women alone is awesome in its evilness. It is staggering how evil that is. I saw a video of people in Europe, these 3 guys, and some woman does, I don't know what she did, but they throw her down to the ground and they just start kicking her. And I thought to myself, Dude with the camera, do something. Nothing. When are we going to stand up and say, that's my wife, that's my daughter, and if it's not my daughter, she could be my daughter.
Right.
You do not treat her like that.
I mean, I feel that so strongly as the father of daughters and as a man who loves women genuinely. But I wonder.
I wasn't hitting on you.
Oh, no. I would be flattered if you did, but I know you well.
And no one here should judge us for our love.
No, it's exactly right. It's legal now.
Okay, go ahead.
But I wonder if that's not inevitable in a society that tells us there's no difference between men and women. If there's no difference between men and women, if somebody annoys me, a man annoys me, it's totally within bounds to punch him in the face.
You don't punch a woman in the face.
To punch a woman in the face is absolutely unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Period. And every normal person, every normal man was raised that way. It's the one, doesn't matter what the woman does, you cannot hit her, period. But if we're being told there's no difference between men and women, basically what we're saying is it's a license to treat women the way you would treat a man.
Right, and that's
with violence.
That's because I believe what you said earlier is absolutely right. There is more good than there is evil, but we are not standing up. Stand up and say it out loud. That's wrong, that's evil, that will not happen around me on my watch, period.
Go Glenn Beck, ladies and gentlemen.
It's true though.
It's so great though. It's so great because I've decided that the hallmark of this moment is not lying, it's telling the mirror image of the truth. And I do think that's the hallmark of evil. So if you've got kids, all kids lie, of course, and you catch a kid lying, but it's always 1 or 2 degrees off from the truth. Did you hit your sister? No, I pushed her, right? What we're seeing now is people telling the exact opposite, the inverse of the truth. Was, did you hit your sister? No, you hit my sister. Truly. And that is evil, okay?
Woe unto those who call evil good and good evil.
Exactly. So, but this came to mind because here you have Glenn Beck, this famous, dangerous, right-wing non-respecter of women.
Crazy.
Raising a crowd to its feet in common defense of the idea that you shouldn't hit women. And the reason that women are being hit is because the people who claim to defend women have erased the entire category of women, and along with it, any respect you might have for women. In other words, the defenders of women are their sworn enemies.
Yes.
And the people they tell you don't like women are the only ones defending them.
Yes.
Sorry, to make an obvious point.
Can I tell you, I was in Washington, D.C., and I was there last week.
Oh, come on, why were you there?
Charity asked me to go.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So I'm there, and it was an amazing thing. It was a march for children, and it was mainly moms and dads that are there, and they're just, enough is enough. And about halfway through the crowd, there were 3 rows of people wearing T-shirts that said, "Gays Against Groomers."
Yeah.
Okay?
I know them.
They're fantastic.
Jamie Mitchell.
Yes.
I just talked to her yesterday.
Love her. So, Gays Against Groomers. And there was some, scrapple from some religious person who was like, "We can't have gays here." And I'm like, so unfortunately for that individual, I spoke next. And I said, "Gays Against Groomers. I don't think the Lord is checking what church you go to. I don't think he's looking for your, church card punched every Sunday. I don't think he's looking for anything at this point. He is looking for his children who know the difference between right and wrong and pedophilia and will stand up against it. I applaud Gays Against Groomers." We can disagree about all kinds of stuff. The Lord needs all of us to stand up. Stop dividing yourself. I sit with evangelicals, and I love evangelicals. I love going to other people's churches because I think it's funny because we're all arguing, and I'm sitting in the back, and I'm like, you have no idea. We're all saying the same thing. In many ways, Christians. I'm a Mormon, so we're the Jews of Christians.
Wait, can I just so I can set the scene in my mind, do you sneak into other people's churches on Sunday? Like, how does this work?
Oh, I'm always watching, Tucker. No, and sometimes I'm invited to go speak, and I love it. I just love it. And yet, we will continue to divide ourselves. Look, we have big differences, okay? We do have big doctrinal issues, but I'm just thinking that God might be going, I'm coming down there soon. Kind of like Dad used to say, if I have to come up these stairs and you're not in bed, there's gonna be trouble. Dad's saying that to all of us. Stop your bickering. I'm coming down the stairs soon, and you all better be standing together and fighting against evil.
Yes. So do you feel, since you more than anybody in secular media, I think have been hitting these themes way before anybody I knew would dare use the word God on television.
Can I tell you another quick story?
Please do.
Okay. I'm at Fox. Roger Ailes calls me into his office. You're telling people to pray. Yeah. You're telling people to pray on their knees. Yeah. Glenn, we have an awful lot of old people that watch this show. And you're making them feel guilty because it hurts to get on their knees. I said,
okay, that's pretty funny.
I said, I don't think that's happening. I think they get it. And he said, and another thing, this is a quote. God's got wars and big issues to deal with. He doesn't want to hear from all of these people. I looked at him and I thought he was joking at first and he didn't crack a smile. And I said, I don't think you understand how that works. And he said, well, here's how it works here. Stop saying God. Stop saying God. I said, okay. You want me to stop saying God? Yes. A month later, he calls me in. I couldn't believe this. Do you realize how many times you've said the word God since we last talked? And I said, you counted? 91 times.
Amazing.
There is no other answer. Look, I have been talking about this. I did a chalkboard. Does anybody remember the chalkboard that I said?
Oh, yeah, I remember every chalkboard.
So remember the ones that I got a lot of heat for, and in my prayers I heard, fall on your sword on this one. So I did it every single day. The communists, the anarchists, the socialists, and I think the globalists will all work together to destroy Israel, destabilize the Middle East and Europe, and it will spread to America and collapse America. And I could see that happening. It was so clear, but that's happening right now. So when I said all of those things, I'm thinking to myself, because I prayed every night, give me an answer. How do we stop this? And at the same time, this is a joke. I mean, it's true, but it's a joke. When I was at CNN, my last year there, they come out with, AP comes out with the most admired men in the world.
Yes.
Okay. That Christmas, I'm sitting with my family, and I get a text. I was tied for number 3. It was me tied with the Pope and Nelson Mandela. And I said to myself, those bums? And I looked at my kids and I said, this is how much trouble the world is in. And I told my kids, they were like, Dad, that's and I said, it's not true. It's not true. I'm not that guy. A year after, I'm the most hated man in America, okay?
I've never moved from that spot, personally.
With your hatred for me?
No. I've always been on the most hated list. I've never made it with the Pope and Nelson Mandela,
Not true.
but yeah.
Not
right.
true.
Not
true. But I was at CNN when I was loved, okay? I was at Fox. The only thing that changed was Fox.
Wow.
Fox. And when I was the most hated, I said to my children, remember that list a year ago? This list is just as false. I'm not that guy, and I'm not that guy. This is all just, somebody said recently, and I love this, if you have a problem with me, if you have a problem with something that I said, and it really offended you, I honestly probably didn't mean to offend you. Honestly, I don't set out to offend people. I do tell the truth as I understand it. But if I really did, call me. And if you don't have my phone number, you don't know me well enough to judge me.
Well, that's good. I heard someone say today, if you don't respect someone enough to take his advice, you should ignore his criticism. And I thought that was fair.
That's really good.
So
we should go into the bumper sticker business, man.
I should.
We
Glenn,
make
I was
a
thinking,
fortune.
Today is the first day of the rest of your life. It just kind of occurred to me.
Really, it is.
I should patent
Coexist.
that.
Coexist.
Coexist. You beat me. What's funny is when you were saying those things on television, like everyone else in cable news was talking about like Natalie Holloway. Like you were in very, very deep waters. And I think that's one of the reasons that everyone was terrified of you. They're like, we don't talk about things of eternal significance on cable television. That's just not what we do. And I think that really scared them.
How many times have you done an interview with somebody who halfway through the interview, you just notice their shark eyes? And you're like, you're not even listening to me.
Yes.
You're right? And it is terrifying to see that. You are a powerful interviewer that people trust. You have an agenda and you're not even listening. You're just thinking, how do I get him here? How do I get him here? That is just so evil. And
I always blame Xanax, but you're right. I think it
might be.
Well, it definitely is. Like our entire leadership class is just high as hell. They're so medicated, and you have to ask what percentage of our leaders are on a mind-altering drug, and I would say it's an overwhelming majority.
This is a prime example of disinformation. For instance, tell me, has anybody left a bag of cocaine at the White House?
I look at Kamala Harris and as someone who grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of divorced rich ladies in Southern California, I just know that look, which is like, I can't even hear you, man. I'm so high right now. I see that in her face, and I don't know that.
I heard a friend of mine say, she's America's wine mom.
Yeah.
That she is, like
but
4
too much
glasses
wine,
in.
Too much wine, yeah.
Yeah.
So there have been some questions online about why we as a show would partner with Liberty Safe. Of all the safe companies in the world, why did we decide to enter into a partnership with Liberty Safe? Liberty Safe, of course, was at the center of a pretty big controversy less than a year ago. Let us explain. There's a specific reason that we're partnering with Liberty and not any other safe company, and it's because of that controversy. So a year ago, Liberty Safe got a request from the federal government, a warrant for the emergency access code for a Liberty Safe owner. In this specific case, Liberty had no idea the reason for the search, what this person was charged with or potentially charged with, because the warrant was sealed and restricted. Turns out, in this instance, the warrant wasn't issued by the feds for a drug dealer or a kiddie porn hoarder or a child abuser, but for a January 6th protester. It was, in other words, political. Liberty Safe did not know that, and they were badly stung by this because, like us, they strongly oppose government overreach and they strongly support privacy. They're a safe company. They're for privacy. So the reason that we're supporting Liberty Safe or partnering with them, endorsing their products, not just because they make great safes, which they do, my personal guns are in one of their safes, but because they learned their lesson, because they got stung by federal overreach. And so they have put specific measures in place to make sure this never happens again. So going forward, here's their official policy. We want to be really clear. And we knew this going into our deal with Liberty, and we probably should have said this out loud. Now we are. So going forward, a warrant or a similar compulsory document has to be issued to Liberty Safe with a specific serial number of the safe in question for them to comply, at which point Liberty works with their lawyers to review their requests and challenge them if they can. But here's the change that convinced us. Going forward, customers at Liberty Safe have the option to completely expunge their safe's unique emergency code from Liberty's records. In other words, if you ask, and we have, Liberty will no longer have any record of what that number is. So if the feds come to them and say, we need to get into so-and-so's safe, maybe for political reasons, maybe because they went to a political protest at the Capitol, Liberty can say, sincerely, we can't help you because we don't have that information. And we like that a lot because it puts the power back into the hands of the safe owners. If you take your privacy seriously, if you're worried about government overreach, you can do something about it. And Liberty is offering its customers that chance, and that's why we're supporting them, and we'll continue to. Hope that clears that up.
Are there leaders now in this country who are paying attention, who understand the stakes, who know what's going on, who you think can lead us out of what by any definition is a low and perilous moment?
Not a lot of them in your state government.
Oh, the state government of Utah? I don't know who you're talking about. Can you be a lot more specific?
So I have to tell you, I was walking in and I completely understood it because I'm aware of politics here, and nobody in my crew was understanding. And some women, as I walked by, they were like, "No Cox, no Cox, no Cox."
But I don't want to get controversial, but I have a sincere question.
Yeah.
As someone who follows politics here, I have one friend who represents the state, who's a wonderful, wonderful man in Washington. I'm not going to name names, Mike Lee. And what a great man. What a great man. And he is.
That guy, they take drills into his head every night. They hate him. And
he's
quite
such
honestly,
a normal person with like a normal family and a happy marriage, and he thinks about things, and he's like a normal person.
Quite honestly, the way the media and some leadership in this state treat Mike Lee is an abomination. He is not a radical. He is not a radical. He is a constitutionalist. And for a people who used to really love and listen to and obey Ezra Taft Benson, what the hell is wrong with you?
I agree. Well, I mean, Mike Lee is about as radical as I am, which is not at all radical, actually. The definition of moderate, I believe in rules, I believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Mike Lee actually understands it. Mike Lee is the opposite of a radical. But here's my point, not just to defend Mike Lee, which I'm happy to do, but to ask, how did a state filled with like the happiest families in the country and the most normal people in the country, it's literally Utah. I mean, it's a synonym for happy, thriving people. How did they get leaders like that in the state? I just don't understand that.
Let me answer it this way. I do not know. Listen to this. Only cheer if you have thought this, okay? Isaiah, I will clean out my own house first. Oh, crap. Have you thought that, Salt Lake City?
That just went right over my head, but I'm glad that some people...
So the idea is that God says, I will clean out my own house first. I'm not coming for everybody else. Everybody who says they're with me and they're not, I will clean that house out first, and then we'll go, okay? And I have to tell you, I've talked to people in Salt Lake City, a lot of people, and apparently not as many as I thought, but a lot of people have said, I am worried about our state because we were founded on God beyond the country. Do you know what Brigham Young's one of his first things he did? They were chased out of Missouri and they had bloody feet from walking in the snow. The men were all killed. When they finally came here, which you and I talked about today, I think I would have been pissed at Brigham Young if he said, this is the place. I'd be like, what?
No, I'm going to Tahoe.
Yeah. Did you see Denver back there? I mean, that's nice. It's a desert. But anyway, one of the first things he did, organize a choir. You want to talk about joy, Kamala Harris? There it is. They took and created a choir, and then he had a parade. There's nothing here. He had a parade where the men carried it might be different, but I think it was the men carried the Declaration, and the women carried the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And his point was, we're not mad at that country. Remember, this isn't part of the country yet. We're not mad at America. America did not betray us, but people will go wrong. But the principles are true. Now, you tell me another group of people that have been chased out and have that respect for a country, they found this whole place on God, and do not turn your back on him. Do not turn your back, because he will clean out your house.
Wow. So...
I'm sorry, is this too weird?
No, I love it.
I
love it. I love it. And I have to say, as an Episcopalian from Southern California, I do consider the trek across the country by the Mormon settlers like one of the great displays of toughness like ever. Tough people, for real. I admire that a lot. What happens in this election the next 60 days?
Well, let me tell you, I have no idea. Do you?
I know, but I can't reveal. I'll say this, Trump is winning. No, that's a fact.
Wait. I 100% agree with you. However, is that going to be reported that way?
Well, it's interesting. Of course not. But it's striking how many of the public polls, the media polls, are designed to mislead.
Yes.
So this is not a conspiracy theory. Wikipedia does not acknowledge it, but it is a fact that a lot of public polls are designed to encourage or discourage certain constituencies, including people in Congress. And so the only polls that you can actually trust are the ones done internally by the campaigns, which are not publicly released, because the point of those polls is to drive their behavior. So they actually want to know how they're doing in Wisconsin or Pennsylvania. They're not showing it to anybody. They're just trying to figure out how much they should spend. So they have no incentive to lie at all. And they have a lot of money and every incentive to hire the best pollsters in the world, both sides, by the way. And so the internals on, I happen to know this, the internals on both sides are showing Trump significantly ahead in the battleground states. And that would, look, that's as of, just to be totally clear, that is as of Monday, when I got that fact, and that would include Arizona. So, which is a state that I thought was moving in the other direction.
Yeah.
So, and there are a lot of reasons for that. One of them is a lot of, non-traditional Republicans, or non-traditional, people who haven't voted Republican before are voting for Trump, or say they are. So as of right now, Trump is ahead. The Harris campaign knows that, which is why they're blaming Russia again. But like, what could happen in the next 6 weeks that changes that? I don't see.
I honestly think the only thing that could change that is one of two things: massive corruption and our side believing you can't overcome that massive corruption. That is absolutely not true. But I think it's like 3 in 10 Christians vote. Did you know that?
3 in 10?
Something like that. It's a very low number. It's not what you would expect. If our churches would just say, go out and vote and use the scriptures to tell you the difference between right and wrong. You know this, my gosh, that we're fighting the same battle we have fought from the very beginning. This is as old as the Tower of Babel. It's as old as Satan being cast out. What did Satan say? I'll bring them all back to you, Father. I'll bring them all back, but I want the credit. I'll tell them what to do, and you won't lose any of them. Okay? Jesus said, send me. They're going to make mistakes, but I will sacrifice myself. I will die so they can live again. Which one did God choose? Jesus. We're having the same argument. All of these politicians are saying, give me the credit. I'll tell them exactly what to do. Nobody will be hurt. Nobody's going to be running with a stick that could poke out their eye. Nobody will have guns, and if that doesn't work, nobody will have knives. Nobody will have choice because nobody can fail because that causes problems. That's Satan's plan. That's not Jesus. That's Satan. Choice. God believes in individual choice. He sent us here knowing we would fail and sin, but that is for our own good. If I wasn't an alcoholic, I wouldn't be who I am today. You can either wallow in your problems or you can conquer them and put them in the right place, in the rear view mirror, because you've learned from it and it no longer has power on you. That's the plan of God.
Have you ever, I mean, you've obviously been really successful, but looking back, honestly, have you ever learned anything except through suffering and failure?
Don't listen to this. No.
Right.
The only thing I have learned in the height of my success, I have learned walk away. If it wasn't for my alcoholism and, quite honestly, my baptism and redemption, there's no way that I would have survived Fox. I walked in, and you know this, if you're successful and you'll play ball, they'll give you everything. Everything you want. You can do anything. You'd be amazed at what we can make go away. You'll be amazed how grateful we would be.
All this can be yours.
All this can be yours. Right? And that's true. And what happens is people get in, and then, I know I don't know. Maybe you don't feel this way. But I think fame and fortune is battery acid to the soul. And
you think?
Yeah. And you have to have a different, you have to know that from the get-go. Because when you are famous, it's fleeting. And so you constantly, the game that I can't believe I'm saying this.
Please do. This is really interesting and true.
When I left Fox, I went to start my own thing. And if you remember, everybody said, nobody's going to watch any video online. They won't watch you online. And they were right at the beginning because we were so early. We were before HBO. We were before HBO. We were before Netflix and Amazon. And the problem was buffering, that little wheel that kept spinning.
I remember that.
Right?
Dial-up was slow.
Yeah. So we were just way too far ahead of the game. But everybody said, that's nuts. Well, when you go, and I have high risk tolerance when I feel like, no, this is what we're supposed to do. And I went into it, and you walk off the stage at Fox, and now you're on a platform that is buffering, and you're no longer, I know you felt this before. When I was at Fox, it was like you could feel the White House move. You could feel did you ever feel this way?
No one in my family ever acknowledged what I did for a living, so when I get home, there was like literally no mention of anything I'd ever done during the day.
Oh, no,
not one word. And so I kind of would forget about it, and then I get back to work and be like, whoa, this is too much.
Yeah, no. My wife used to think I was funny. Not anymore. I mean, you're not a prophet in your own house, okay?
No.
My folks are like, right, Dad. I mean, when I was on the air, I could feel the impact, okay? And that's pretty intoxicating. It's so dangerously intoxicating. And I could feel it. And I didn't like it. And I left, and I should say, I didn't like it because part of me really liked it.
Exactly.
Okay? And so I had to get out of there. I mean, my prompting was, if you don't leave now, you won't leave with your soul. I want my soul.
And so that was, did you, to be more specific, was that a message that you felt you received?
I've always wanted to sit at the cool kids table. I think everybody does. Okay, nobody wants to be a pariah. Nobody wants to be. I want to be tied with Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
And you're at the cool kids table.
You don't want to be with the dorks and the kids with thick glasses and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I've never been a cool kid. I know that comes as a surprise, but I've never been the cool kid. And I had so many things that had happened. I had to deal with Paramount Pictures. Gone because of Van Jones. All kinds of things, but because I was who I was, they were intrigued by the creativity, but then boycotts and everything else, get away from him, okay? And the night I was going in to tender my resignation at Fox, I was called, they were doing, do you remember the Broadway show Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't know this at the time, but they wrote a book about it, about what that was, that whole thing. And it was about to close. I'm so stupid, I don't know you don't review things, before the debut, okay? It's on Broadway, I think it was open, but they had not had its official debut. And that usually you don't review that. And there were lots of problems with it, but I saw it, and I saw such vision. And this, I knew what that could be. They just screwed up the second half. They were doing too much. But I got on the air and I started talking about it, and their sales of tickets just skyrocketed. And so they called me, and they said, we're making some changes to the show. Could you be willing to come? So I went. And I talked to the producers, and I said, this is what's, some of the things. And then I get a call. Would you come tonight? We think we've fixed some problems, but we just want you to. So I go. Halfway through, one of my security guys hands a phone to me, and it just says, Bono is backstage, wants to meet you. Interested? And I'm like, Bono. All of a sudden, I'm a cool kid. And so I go backstage, and it's Julie Taymor, who did The Lion King. She was the director. It was Michael Cohen that was the producer. It was Bono who wrote all of the music. And as we're walking in, my wife says, do not give them advice. And so we're standing there, and Bono says, we're having a disagreement. What do you think? I think I want to go home with my wife. Okay? So we leave, and all I'm thinking of is, I finally have access. I can do things. I can create things. This is amazing. And I walk into our apartment, and we had this, movie apartment. It was in the Bloomberg building, like 56th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, 180-degree view of the city. I was living a movie, okay? And we walk in, and the lights are all off, and I open the door, and I see the skyline where I always wanted to live when I was this little. I always wanted to live in New York. And I open the door, and it's dark, and it's just the city, and I'm on this high with Bono and everything, and I said to my wife, how can this be God's plan? I have access now. And I am so fortunate, my wife, who is much better than I am, said, I'm going to bed. And I walked to the window, and I can still feel the cold glass on my forehead. And I leaned against the window, and I put my head there, and I'm looking down at the city, which is just intoxicating. If you like that kind of stuff, it's intoxicating. And I look down, and I'm like, how can this be your plan? And I heard, internally, if you don't leave now, you will not leave with your soul. The next day I went in and tendered my resignation.
No way. Good for you. Did you ever have a moment of regret?
Yes, every day. Hey, this is what I started to tell you. I don't know how I got so distracted. What I started to tell you was, and now I lost it again. I don't know.
You sincerely
I started to say, there are times when I left, there were times that I felt I'm slipping. I got to get it back. I got to get it back. I'm slipping. I'm not in the public eye. I don't know if you've ever felt that, but that's what fame does to you. It makes you. It just sets some alarm bell off in you. You're not who you used to be. You're not as good as you used to be. You got to go. You got to get this. You got to do that. You got to keep moving. I don't want that. I don't want that. No. I honestly, we just left our ranch. I've spent the last 4 months at my ranch, and last night my wife said, "You don't seem like you're in the best of moods." And I said, for the last 4 months, I can go in, do my job, talk about all these things, and then walk outside, and it's quiet. I said, I am at the least stress and the healthiest mindset I've been in probably 20 years. I don't want to leave. I don't want to go back to Dallas. But my kids are still in school, and so we're going back to Dallas.
I always thought when I worked in television, which was my whole life really, that every man on TV should have a full-length mirror mounted outside his shower. And so you emerge
I disagree.
No, I think you'll agree when you understand why.
Okay.
Because you walk out of the steam and you're in the shower thinking about, how great you are, and then you see this kind of furry, lumpy Homo sapien, this primate, and you realize, wait a second, that's me. And I am, I'm not a godlike figure. I'm absurd.
Yeah.
I look ridiculous, actually.
Oh, and you look so much better than I do.
I don't know. I don't have a mirror in your bathroom, but
I have one in yours. I'm always watching.
I I just really believe that it's so important to know how absurd you are. And I have 3 daughters, so it's like not hard for me. In fact, I always joke in my house that my memoir will be called The Carlson Girls Are Not Impressed. And I'm so grateful for their resistance to being impressed. But
I have to tell you, I was just talking to somebody in the green room, and they said, Jack Carr is here. Who loves Jack Carr? Where's Jack? So Jack,
I'm looking at him right there.
There he is. I love Jack.
An amazing human being.
So my daughter said, and I apologize for this story, Jack. My daughter said at one point, she's the reader of the family, and she came to me and she said, Dad, you got to read this book. And I said, oh, what? Why? What's it about? And she said, it's a New York Times #1 bestseller. And I said, ooh. And I said, your dad has 25 New York Times bestsellers and 12 #1s. And she literally did this. She had the book and she went, oh. Me being a best-selling author destroyed her image of the New York Times, which I'm happy for.
100%.
But she was like, this thing is a sham.
No, totally. That is so good. May every man have a daughter like that.
Yes.
I have to say, we've done this is our 4th night in a row, and for the 4th night in a row, I've interviewed someone who is sober.
Yeah.
And I am also. And I don't say it in a judgy way, but there is something about people who've been forced to confront the fact that they're pretty flawed, which you did in the first sentence this evening, that it's very, very important. It's so important to have your flaws up in your face at all times because it keeps you from confusing yourself with God.
That's why I like the ranch.
Yeah.
I look up, I am so insignificant and I'm flawed.
Yes.
There are times that I think, dig me, and God is going, And I really truly believe this. Alcoholics could save the world. Well, not functioning alcoholics. I mean, ones that are in recovery. I'll solve this. I tell you how to fix it. The ones who have gone through recovery, because every step, if our country, if our planet took those 12 steps, we'd fix it overnight. Admit you're powerless over this. I've tried to fix it, but I'm powerless. I cannot fix it. There's a higher power above me. I need to pay attention to the higher power. I need to get rid of all of the crap that I'm afraid of that somebody will find out about me. I'll confess it. I'll try to make amends when I can for anything that I've done to hurt somebody. It's amazing in the scriptures. It's the helmet of salvation. The helmet of salvation. The helmet stopping crap from coming into your head. You've done this, you're that, you're wrong, you're insignificant, you're too little, you'll never make it. Put the helmet of salvation on your head. That means put a shield in front of you. Get rid of all of this stuff in your life. Don't believe all of those lies, that tape that you have running inside of your head all the time, telling you whatever lie it is. Push eject and get that tape and throw it in the garbage, and then put a shield in front of you. I don't believe any of that. I know the truth. I know who I am. I am a human being. I am flawed, but I have the right to make my own choices, and one of those choices is to try and fail. And if I fail, don't take that failure from me. It's the only way I learn. What are we doing in our society right now? You and I were the same on the Gulf War, or on the Iraqi War. We're the same. We both were like, that's probably weapons of mass destruction.
Saddam did 9/11. It seemed natural, yeah.
Correct, okay? You know what? We learned.
Oh, yes.
We know now That doesn't work. That was a bad idea. How many things, RFK, I love RFK. I mean, I don't, but I do. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm like, I really liked your dad. You kind of remind me of your dad. I like a lot of the stuff you say, and then some of the other stuff. I'm like, oh dear God, you're a Kennedy. You've got to be evil. But I really like what he's doing, and I like the fact that he's saying, we got to get healthy. We've got, this. I was for go pharmaceutical companies, go big food. We're feeding the world. We are killing ourselves and the world. We've got to stop. We think we're God. And what's really bad is we're about to create God, AI. We are about to create a being. These scientists think they can handle this. You have to understand, AI, you have to understand that is an alien life. They don't even know how it comes up with answers, okay? They create it. I'm pretty sure God's like, I know what he's gonna say, and I know how he came to that, and he's stupid. That's God. We create this new life form. We don't even know how it thinks or comes up with its answers. It is an alien life form. It would be as stupid of all of us to say, there's spaceships up in the sky and they're going to be landing in 20 minutes. And for all of us to do one of two things. Either everyone freak out, they're going to kill all of us, or start making pies because they're going to be our best friend. We have no idea. We have no idea. They think differently. They have different experiences. AI is an alien life form, and you should never fear the machine. You fear the encoding. You fear the program. You fear the people that are programming it right now. Are they teaching it white man bad? Racism, the only way to fix racism is to be racist yourself? Transgenderism and gender is fluid? Is that what it's learning? Because if that's what we're teaching it, I have news for you. You're sponsored by a fantastic group that fights abortion, and I am
preborn.
Yeah, and I'm sitting with Dan and his wife today, who are some of the greatest people I know, and we're talking about how things are changing. And he leans over to me at one point and he said, if we're debanked, what do we do? He's thinking ahead. If Kamala Harris wins, she is the most shout your abortion evil on that topic. She is the most strident pro-abortion person. Do you really think that you're going to have a right? Look what's happening in Europe. They're silencing voices. Look what they're doing to Elon Musk in Brazil. If they'll do it to Trump, they'll do it to Elon Musk. Do you really think they won't put you in jail? Grandma who walked through the Capitol building on January 6th, who went to prison? They will not allow you to fight for these things. We have got to fight them now. We have to decide who we are, what is really important. Is my life really... Donald Trump learned this. Donald Trump he doesn't need this. No matter what you think of Donald Trump, he doesn't need this. The man who gets down and is shot, somebody has just about killed you, for him to stand up and say, I need to see the crowd. I need to give them a message, show them all right. He didn't know the sniper's dead. He stands up, exposes himself because he believes in something. Here's a guy who's actually,
So let me ask you one last question since you touched on the shooting. What was that? What was that, actually? I mean, that just happened in front of everyone a little more than a month ago. I don't think we've talked about it since as a country. I think it's been memory hold. I don't think it's on Wikipedia.
Well, Jack, I don't know how many #1 books you have, but as an author myself, I think we can relate to each other, am I right? So as a fiction writer, I would say that was an op. They tried to kill the President of the United States.
I mean, I think we can say conclusively the Biden administration allowed that to happen, period. They literally allowed it to happen. Whether knowingly or not, they allowed it to happen. I've been in a million Secret Service events my whole life. And an unguarded roof 130 yards away, no.
Doesn't happen.
Right. So, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
And yet no one has followed up on how that happened.
Curious, isn't it? Curious. I mean, you know how, look, I had a conversation with a guy once, and he said to me, "You got to get out of there. In fact, I think you're having a heart attack." And I said, "What? You're having a heart attack?" "No, I'm not. Listen to me. You're having a heart attack. I'm going to send a plane to pick you up right now so you can get out of there because you need some space to recover from heart." And I said, "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" And he said, "Glenn, do you think movies are just pull it out of the thin air? This kind of stuff happens all the time at great levels of power. If you want to, they cannot allow Donald Trump to be president. I don't care what you think of the guy. I don't like some of the stuff he says. I don't like it. But I tell you, I have been with him one-on-one. He is a different man in person than he is on stage. He is charitable. He is kind. He remembers people. He remembers your children's names. He cares, and he's brave enough to do it. You know what he is? He's Martin Luther King in this way. Martin Luther King was like the 8th guy that people said, "Hey, you want to lead this civil rights march?" All the good guys, all the guys who were like, "I'm buttoned up, I'm with the Lord," they said no. No. Martin Luther King was just the first one that was either willing or dumb enough to take the job. He knew what was going to happen to him. The Lord will use any person, any flaws, anybody, if you just will say yes. He'll just keep going from person to person. Donald Trump is just the first person who said, "Okay, I'll do it." And he will do it. And what, are we going to sit at home when we have a guy who's willing to die for the country? Not his fame, not his fortune, his country. And are we going to sit at home and go, "I don't know, they might try to steal the election"? Get your fat ass out of the chair and grab people and take them to the polls.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Glenn Beck.
The big tech companies censor our content. I hate to tell you that, it's still going on in 2024, but you know what they can't censor? Live events. And that's why we are hitting the road on a fall tour for the entire month of September, coast to coast. We will be in cities across the United States. We'll be in Tulsa, Oklahoma with Dan Bongino, Kansas City with Megyn Kelly, Wichita with Charlie Kirk, Milwaukee with Larry Elder, Rosenberg, Texas with Jesse Kelly, Grand Rapids with Kid Rock, Hershey, Pennsylvania with J.D. Vance, Reading, Pennsylvania with Alex Jones, Fort Worth, Texas with Roseanne Barr, Greenville, South Carolina with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Sunrise, Florida with John Rich, Jacksonville, Florida with Donald Trump Jr. You can get tickets at tuckercarlson.com. Hope to see you there.